what I would also say, a lot of this is the opinion of myself and of Ruz, who's joined from AWS. We will take you through some context around AWS as well as our view on consulting, and then you've shared, Darian, some questions, and we'll take some of those questions and perhaps some live questions at the end. We've tried to change up the content a little bit also to answer some of those questions along the way. You're welcome to record, and I think this can be quite interactive. I know we've got 72 people excluding Ruz and I on, if you do have questions along the way, please pop them into the chat and we can have a bit of a more interactive session as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Terence. I think you can begin with y'all's introductions and y'all's backgrounds, and you can take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen before we start. Okay. Right. Just confirming you can see the screen.
Yes, I can see it clear.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So today we've got two large topics and a little bit of tech mixed in between. We've got a view that I'm going to share with you around AWS in Africa. I think many people know Amazon, as we heard in the introduction, but just by show of hands, if you can use the raise hands, if we can see that in some way, how many of you are familiar with AWS, Amazon Web Services? Okay. So we've got 7, 10. Okay, so that's a fair chunk. Well, I think that reached up to about 20 or something at some point. Thank you very much. How many of you, you don't have to show up the hands necessary for this, but how many of you know that AWS started the concept of cloud and really started the whole era of cloud? Probably not that many of you, but how many of you actually knew? And I want to see hands for this. So if you've got your hand up, clear it. I want to know how many of you know that cloud was born in Cape Town. For the whole world, the concept we have of cloud now started in Cape Town. Three people, great. So we'll go through some of that context, and then we'll go into a little bit about consulting and different types of jobs that we do. So from an Amazon perspective, we're a technology provider, but part of our role as getting corporates, getting countries to adopt cloud is advisory. So we're consultants, we're advisors, we're technologists. And then even when their customers are running on AWS, we help and support. So AWS we're just not just only the technology and the platform. Ruz and I are different parts of the organizations that help support customers in very different ways. And we're going to take you through some of those differences today, just to give you a feel of, as you enter the working world, what type of work you can expect, what are the different types of works, especially if you're studying something like computer science, information systems, engineering, you could well be in the tech space. In fact, anything data. I always think back to my very first project, which was at ESCOM. The Java developer sitting next to me studied art, not anything science-based even. So any of you could be in the tech career, any of your friends as well. Before we get into the context, just about me. So my name is Terence. I lead solutions architecture at AWS for Sub-Saharan Africa. So I've got technology advisory teams that sit in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Dubai, looking after some of the other African countries, and then for South Africa in Johannesburg and Cape Town. I'm actually in Cape Town this week, even though my house is in Joburg. There's a Table Mountain kind of there that you can see. But usually Ruz and I are in the same office. So I've been in. I'm UKZN alumni, Riz as well. I finished up my BSc undergrad and honors at UKZN before coming to Johannesburg and working at Accenture. I worked in Scotland for a bit for a software development company, then back at Accenture at home again in technology strategy. And then I worked for about 5 years and a bit for a South African consulting company called BSG, where I headed up technology consulting, and I was an associate partner. Some of you may know BSG because they're quite active at universities as well. And then for the last 4 years and a bit, I've been at AWS, leading our solutions architecture practice. And my team, really what we do is go to advise customers on technology strategy, specific tech direction, business value of the technology, but also down to specific architectures that they need to use, different choices for different applications. My primary focus is working on the largest customers in the country, and actually, surprisingly, even across all of these jobs, these are the customers that typically pop up always. Spent quite a lot of time with Old Mutual yesterday. Um, Work a lot with the banks, Standard Bank, Absa, Capitec, pretty much all of the banks and insurers in the country, and they're all using the cloud, all adopting the latest technology, and it's really good to be able to work at a company where you can get exposure to a large number of customers and use cases. Bruce, do you want to do your intro?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Terence. Great. Thank you, UKZN, for organizing this. My name is Ruth Getauer. I'm a technical account manager at AWS. So I'm excited because I also started this journey you are in. I was at UKZN. I did my BSc in computer science and IT. And yeah, from then I got into the Amazon Cloud Support graduate program. So you enter as a graduate at associate level. Then from there, I grew up the ranks to be a cloud support engineer, and I was promoted as well to be a technical account manager 1, and now I'm a technical account manager 2. Yeah, so basically, I've done a number of engagements with customers in EMEA, so mostly in Europe. Yeah, from broadcast to AI, so many engagements. I'm always excited. I've gained skills over the years. As you can see, I've done many of the AWS certifications, and yeah, I'm still doing them. And yeah, some in Linux, which is one of the core of the cloud computing. I'm sure when you join Amazon, you'll be more engaged in that, the largest operating system. Yeah, so basically that's me. Yeah, I'm also pursuing some other career growth opportunity within AWS. And yeah, that's in a nutshell about me for now. Thank you, Terence. Thank you, team from UKZN.
Just need to get my screen back. Okay, cool. So in terms of today's focus, we're going to go through a bit around AWS in Africa, and then we're going to go through from a consulting perspective, IT consulting, what the industry is all about, where the market needs come from, how it's evolved, and skills that you need, and how you can go, go about from where you are today to getting closer to the industry and to that working well. We can stop and do questions. Ruz, if you can just check on the chat for as things pop up, because I can't really see the chat or anything else while I'm presenting.
Okay, sure.
Go for it. Cool. So starting with AWS in Africa, and it's no different with our AWS story to Amazon. It's all about innovation, solving need. We started solving that need as a challenge within Amazon.com. So we had the Amazon.com, the main website, retail, growing at a staggering pace. And there were lots of technology challenges that we needed to be able to solve, things like scaling, things like resilience, and being able to handle peak loads, and as well as being efficient when it's not those peak loads. So what we actually had is a bunch of really clever engineers working at Amazon at the time, were tasked with figuring out how to actually take that capability that was honed in Amazon, the ability to efficiently run large systems, large distributed systems at scale, and be able to take that as a utility computing offering, and be able to offer that as a separate service. At the time, we believed that if Amazon could benefit from something like this industrialized running of IT and the way we provision services, so could many other organizations. So in 2003, we started working on this project. So in Amazon style, we write narratives as planned, so a 6-pager document with all the data points in it. The team wrote up a 6-pager and got approval from the CEO. So that was Jeff and then his leadership team, and then started to work on it. So what many people don't know is actually that the engineers who were on that team were actually South African and wanted to do the project, but wanted to come back to South Africa, start up a dev team, and then work on that actual project. So the whole AWS in South Africa started actually in a house in Llandudno, which is kind of just a little bit south of like Camps Bay area. And they moved into a small office as the team grew bigger in Constantia. And in fact, some of the furniture that they used at the time in the little home office was donated furniture that somebody donated to the team. So it was really like scrappy startup kind of vibe for AWS inside of a bigger Amazon.com, which was also still quite startup. They weren't on the corporate network, and they were really treated like a startup, separate everything, working startup hours and completing offerings. And within a few years, the company launched the first infrastructure as a service, which led to what we have as our modern day EC2. And it actually took a little bit of time for that idea to take hold. So from 2006 is really where cloud actually began. But still to this day, even though that was a single service created in Cape Town, part of a bigger part of our offering today, we've got development teams that sit largely in the US, but we still have a very big presence in Cape Town. This building that I'm sitting, the next building over, we've got our service teams who actually develop cloud services. A large chunk of them still sit in Cape Town and support some of our core services. We then have large development teams across the world in Seattle, where our head office is, Virginia, our second kind of major office, in the UK, in India. So we've got development teams across the world who are running and supporting AWS. In terms of Africa footprint, we currently have offices that support our customer base. I mentioned this at the start. So Cape Town is where our data centers are. So our AWS cloud region, we've got the big 3 availability zones. You can think of an availability zone as being like a grouping of data centers. We've got 3 big groupings of data centers in Cape Town, making up the Cape Town region, the only region in Africa. We then have corporate offices, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Nairobi, Lagos, and then we've got some people sitting in Dubai that support the countries in between. So we've got like a West Africa, East Africa hub. And then from an infrastructure perspective, we've got in Cape Town, I mentioned the region, we've got our edge and content cache services called CloudFront in Cape Town, and then Direct Connect, which is our specialized connectivity into the cloud to get you onto the AWS backbone, is also in most of these areas. So we've got large infrastructure investment in Cape Town. We then, beginning of last year, opened up a local zone in Lagos, and we've got another one planned for Johannesburg and another for Nairobi coming soon. We also have things like AWS Outpost, which effectively takes the hardware running in our own data center, and instead of running it only in our data center, we have a version that can go into a customer's data center or a co-location facility. That helps us get to low latency requirements, as well as for certain countries that have very strong regulatory requirements and data residency requirements. You can get the AWS hardware running in your own data center. We still manage it. You still use the same APIs. You still run the same core services. It's just a physical set of hosts that are situated in country or in that data center. So we're progressing, and we'll build out more infrastructure investments in Africa, and we'll scale up the existing ones. So that's our current footprint. And of course, as we put more infrastructure footprint, we increase the size of our teams and increase our investment into those different areas. From things like a sustainability perspective, we focus on improving all of the communities where we operate. So one such thing was our renewable energy plant that we launched in Feb 22. This is a 10 megawatt plant that can power 8,000 homes on average, saving us a lots of carbon emissions. And we've got a goal to, by the end of next year, to empower all of our data centers by renewable energy. This particular plant is located in the Kalahari. It is also 60% Black women owned, and it's part of our commitment to both sustainability as well as community uplift. Additionally, skills is a big challenge across Africa. We launched in Cape Town last year the first AWS Skills Center in Africa. So there's one in San Francisco, one in Virginia. The third one for us globally is in Cape Town. These are the only three that exist. This is part of our commitment as AWS to upskill 29 million people for free by the end of 2025. By the way, we've already beat this goal. So I think we need to come up with a different goal. We've already upskilled those 29 million people well ahead of target. And in terms of South Africa, we've created the Skills Center, which is basically, it's in Cape Town, near the Cape Town station. Anyone off the street can go in and sign up for a cloud course and do a classroom-based training or online training, or look at specific tech and go get trained up. We've already trained up more than 300,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa, and this includes more than 100,000 in South Africa since 2017. Okay, and then just in terms of our overall investment, to give you some sense of the scale of investment that we've had, just in terms of the infrastructure we've put down, our spend for infrastructure is, to the end of 2019, 46 billion rand investment. We've already, by the end of 2022, had spent 15.6 billion of that, and that's just infrastructure going into Cape Town, Johannesburg, and empowering our regions. We've estimated in this economic impact study that was commissioned last year that we've already had a positive impact of 80 billion on the South African GDP, and we've created more than 5,700 full-time job equivalents in that process. Okay. We also have thousands of customers across sub-Saharan Africa using AWS. You'll see some of the brands, places like Pick n Pay and Woolies, big banks like Absa, Standard Bank, Discount, Discovery. Most of the big customers that the big companies that you use on a day-to-day basis have some form of presence on AWS, and those that don't, we're working on that. So you're likely to see more of that in the future as well. A couple of call-outs here. We have Old Mutual, who is like probably, I think, 188 years old this year. Last year, they completed the entire migration onto AWS. They've shut down all of their data centers, and they're fully operating in South Africa on AWS only. We have customers like Time Bank, fully digital bank, the first bank to hit profitability in South Africa, running entirely on AWS. They're building new banks faster and faster across the world, and they use the AWS global footprint to expand quickly. So their first bank, the one that's running in South Africa, took 29 months for them to get out. The second bank took only, I think it was 13, and the third bank only took them 6 months to launch, and that's the Vietnam bank that they launched recently. So that's kind of a view of where we're operating and the types of customers we have. These customers, they're choosing AWS specifically because we're a leader in the cloud business. We have the most proven operational experience. We've got far less downtime hours than any of the other cloud providers by quite a big margin. Even recently, when we had things like the undersea cable cuts, AWS was not, we had some service degradation, but we still had connectivity that could service all of our customers, whereas other cloud providers were not able to and had outages. I think some of the things that we look at is specifically at AWS across Amazon, we believe also in long-term value. So we invest a lot with our customers to make them successful for the long term, instead of trying to chase quick revenue targets and get the biggest deal, etc. We will do specifically, both my team and Drew's team, whatever's in the best interest of the customer. And sometimes that actually means we take out cost of the customer's workload. We re-architect for serverless technology, microservices, containerization, move to open source. Those things sometimes mean less money for AWS, but because we take that long-term focus with our customers, we earn trust by showing them that everything we do is in their best interest. We're always innovating, so we've got a strong culture of innovation, and we've got the biggest breadth and depth of technology services compared to any other provider, and that gives us a unique position just because of that experience, the breadth of services. You can do pretty much anything on the cloud these days, even the IoT-based workloads or low latency sensitive kind of workloads. You can do all of that. In addition, we have quite a huge community of customers, partners, developers, user groups. So there's quite a large community to rely on if you're getting into cloud, whether as a corporate or a startup or just a dev team. There's a lot of support and a lot of kind of free resources at your disposal, both from a funding perspective. AWS does a lot of funding to startups and new businesses, as well as funding to corporates to help them get started on their cloud journey, because sometimes it can be a little bit expensive if you're running your entire IT footprint on-prem and you need to do something in the cloud. So moving servers over, migrating to the cloud while you're still running your old footprint can get a bit expensive. We put a lot of effort into making sure that we can bring some investments to help customers do that the right way. Okay. Now, in terms of technology, you may or may not have seen a lot of this, but a large proportion of the current focus, and maybe this is just kind of the forefront of thinking from corporate South Africa, is actually machine learning and AI, especially generative AI. So from sort of mid last year, this has been a significant focus for AWS teams in country, but from a machine learning perspective, through Amazon, we've actually been working on ML AI for like the last 20 years. So we've got a lot of services and experience that we bring in. What we've done differently in this space compared to other providers, instead of trying to build the best large language model, the best models, and have the best private solution, we've actually, although we are building those things, we've focused on making the cloud the best place to run these types of workloads. So we're focused on making it easy for people to build new foundation models, to get the best performance out of generative AI, machine learning, and give you flexibility to build your own models as well as to bring in open source and third-party models. If we look at our full stack, we have, and this is just kind of showing you like an overview. We have built-in applications like our contact center apps that come as fully built applications where generative AI, machine learning is baked in, and you get to use it as a byproduct of using the service. We have tools to build large language models, and we also have specific infrastructure for inference and training. Just to give you a view of some of our services, I won't get into details, but we do have some services that come with pre-built generative AI capabilities like Amazon Q, which is our embedded machine learning, embedded generative AI into things like our QuickSight, which is our visualization and dashboards, Amazon Connect, which is our contact center solution. We've got a solution called Bedrock that lets you effectively run large language models and be able to do all of that without managing infrastructure. And then if you're doing pretty much anything at a more granular level and building your own, we have very specific instances, GPU instances, specific solutions for training and inference and building your own models. But we also have core solutions that you can leverage for all of this. From a current focus in South Africa, not just from a generative AI perspective, but in terms of technology overall, there are a few areas that customers are focusing. So customer experience is one of the things to their end customers, internal employee productivity, producing creative content, and enhancing business operations. These are areas, what I would call higher order use cases. So once you have your migration components you're running on AWS on the cloud, you've got then your data platforms and tools and good quality data. This is what customers are then concentrating on. So this is just a little peek into where the focus is. I also wanted to mention we've got, I know it's in Johannesburg, so maybe a lot of you won't be able to attend, but we do have big learning events like the Johannesburg Summit. This is my team responsible for all of the content. We've got, I think, like around 50 talks that we will do on the day. But this is in Johannesburg as a learning event, and there are many events that we run. Not all are going to be as large scale as this. We've got about 5,000 people that will attend this, or that's the expectation, the minimum expectation, 5,000 people attending the summit in Johannesburg. And we have even bigger conferences like reInvent that happens in Las Vegas in December, where that could run into the hundreds of thousands of customers attending. So that's just a quick overview of AWS and where our current focus is. Before I go into actually the bit around consulting career paths, Ruz, do you want to add a bit in terms of like where you see your customers focusing from a tech perspective?
Yeah, so thanks, Terrence. Yeah, we do engage customers in terms like from my engagements since I was an engineer, we do as well like work with customers on different projects in terms of how they're building solutions. But generally, it's more around as well consulting. If from the development that I've done over the years, I've moved from being an engineer where we support. Then we also move into strategic roles where we engage customers in terms of uh, helping them come to AWS and also building on AWS. So generally, I can say much more of my involvement involves consulting as well. So that's great. Uh, Sort of an aspect to look into career if you're looking into expand your IT career.
Okay, cool. So let's with that. I think that's a good point to get into consulting, and I'll give a quick overview if you're not too sure what consulting is, because it sounds really weird. You've been doing some development, some project management, and then we say consulting. It sounds to some people like it's fake, like you get the memes where it's like the consultant is somebody who like takes your own watch off your hand and tells you the time. That's not exactly what we do. I'll give you a view of exactly what consulting is. So let me get into it. And I do this lecture for I've done it at UKZN, I've done it at Rhodes. I'll just give an example as to what consulting is from my own life experience. So I'm going to start with a use case because it may be easier to understand it this way, even though it takes a little bit more time. So firstly, why does the world need consultants of any type really, but we're going to hone in a bit on technology consultants. The example I'm going to use is something I did in my career a few years ago while I was at BSG actually. We had at the time ABSA, which we now see used to be Barclays Africa. It was ABSA first, and then it was bought over by Barclays, along with a number of other banks in Africa. And that whole umbrella was called Barclays Africa. In 2016, the Barclays decided Africa wasn't strategic interest for them, and they decided to divest, which means sell off that part of the business. ABSA then came back as a brand and had a very limited time to become self-sufficient, to not use the Barclays system. So we had, in terms of that project, if you think of it as a project, moving from Barclays to back to ABSA with a little bit more, because ABSA was only in South Africa, and then we needed to take 13 banks from 12 countries and get them into an ABSA kind of frame. But this meant that ABSA's people, processes, technology all had to move off a Barclays-led solution to an ABSA solution. And ABSA had a few choices. They could copy exactly what Barclays was running, make it a little bit easier. So Barclays was running SAP for the HR system. ABSA could have just taken a copy of that and done that. At the time, the strategic decision was made to invest in new technology and not do that, invest more in cloud services, software as a service, actually have a better technology footprint at a lower cost, but lots of engineering effort up front. So if we look at what needed to happen, it was 42,000 employees at the time, plus suppliers and third parties, hundreds of applications, data that needed transformation from being mixed data with Barclays and ABSA data to pure ABSA data, only needing to go out of those systems and be managed in new systems. And the choice to modernize or just copy the whatever applications were there. There were also lots of regulatory kind of things that we needed to comply with. So data security, while also keeping the lights on. And in that transition period, ABSA still needed to send all of the ABSA customer, ABSA system information to Barclays, so Barclays could still report on their regulatory commitments, even to the South African government, until ABSA was completely self-sufficient. So we have the old world, all the systems, we have the new world, the new kind of target set of technologies and processes, and nobody had really done this before. If you think about like ABSA, the staff who were there, they just knew how to run what they currently had, which was even not that great because Barclays ran and owned many of those systems. So many of the ABSA technology people were support staff or local admins, and were supported by teams in the UK and India. So they didn't really have the skill to do this. They could, but in order to do this transformation, you need really good engineering skills. You need people who know how to do all of the different things that would be required. So the first thing is, like, yeah, ABSA didn't actually have capacity from a people perspective to run this project. The current staff had the existing jobs. That was just enough to run the business. If they wanted to create more capacity, they would have needed to hire everyone that they need for the future projects, as well as to run the current bank. And then the question is, what do you do with everyone you've hired after that? Then skills. The people that they had skills for the current job. They could have gone down the option of teaching all the people, so learn all the skills that they needed, or they could have gone hiring again, hire for the skills that they need, project managers, developers, etc. The experience is also quite valuable. If you don't know how to do this type of transformation, you're going to learn it on the job. That may be quite difficult. Again, you could hire people with divestment experience. Not all of this can be trained, so we've got an experience kind of gap. Then risk. Cost of getting it wrong is quite high, but will existing staff really know how to handle things like the applicable regulations, handle a divestment, handle things like recons for payroll? There's also significant time pressure. ABSA needed to do it in 2 years, or Barclays would start charging them a support cost. Could they ramp up fast enough using any of the other strategies? I don't think so. And then actually the ability to execute is quite important. Did they even know what the right approach was, how they would go about doing this, how to handle all the moving pieces? So from that perspective, instead of hiring more staff or training up their own people, ABSA opted to do this as fast as possible with as little risk as possible by using a number of consultants, people like Accenture, like BSG. If there was a financial services consulting company in Johannesburg, chances are they were doing some work with ABSA as part of this, given how large the scale of the project was. So now that you know why consultants are valuable, I didn't even get into what the consultants actually were doing there, but why they were valuable. I just want to talk about where consultants come from. Now, typically, if we look at a bell curve kind of view of performance, and this is the general population, you'd see probably maybe 16% of the workforce as really high performers. And this is what consulting companies or general, even advisory type companies aim to have these kind of people in. They typically, cream off the crop in terms of expertise, but also need a few other traits to be able to work as a consultant. And really, we need these kind of people because if a company like ABSA is paying for the best kind of skill to deliver something, they're looking for you to bring high-performing people. So the clients actually expect and pay for consultants to be high-performing people that they bring into their workforce for a specific job. And if we look at why that makes sense to have average performers in an organization, if you look at typical IT support, you may need specific skills. You need some admin skills, maybe some security networking skills. I've just labeled like random skills that you need. If you're running internal projects, maybe you need some of those skills, but you probably need other skills like project management, DevOps, etc. Now, when you're running a project like App Server's running, some of those skills you may need in specialist workforce, but they may be skills like regulatory skills or specific build skills. The HR example, APSA implemented Workday as their HR solution. You need people who can do data integration, data engineering to get data in, as well as being able to understand HR processes and be able to get a system like Workday configured properly for the APSA need. So again, specialist skills, and these specialist skills are sometimes very expensive. If you think of skills like for SAP, some of the cloud-based skills, cloud architecture, these are really expensive skills. So if you hire people, you pay a lot for them. If they don't have good work, they end up being poached by other organizations. Chances are you're better off hiring these skills for specific projects you need from a consultancy or development company, and then when you don't need them, you're not paying for that expensive skill. Consultants, I won't get into too much of detail, but typically we see traditional consultants providing information, solving a problem, conducting some diagnosis, providing recommendations, going into execution, maybe assisting implementations. Now we see consultants doing things like persuading and influencing, building value cases, driving commitment, facilitating client learning, improving organizational effectiveness, things like developing operating models, etc. But we also see a lot of assisting implementation, things like actually doing development, actually doing data engineering. And we as AWS, we have teams that can do all of this. Now, when we're assisting, we're typically assisting either through the knowledge we have, so knowledge around cloud, around technology, skills we have, so skills, things like architecture skills, maybe data engineering skills, build skills, or we're following a specific process like a cloud adoption framework process or a well-architected review process where it's by virtue of us having that process available to us, we're adding value to a customer. Now, in terms of the different domains that we support, this model is modeled on something called ITIL, which is the IT information library. It's just a standard way of looking at a IT business within a customer. Typically, the areas that consultants will get involved in, you can get involved in pretty much everywhere, but some make more sense. Really around service strategy, so creating IT roadmaps, alignment, architecture, doing things like technology architecture, solution architecture, information architecture and management, project program initiation and management, the whole development lifecycle. So anything developing new solutions and services, and even sometimes into transitioning those into active use, so moving them from dev into production. We typically would have a lot of value to add to customers here. When we then get into the service management and operations, typically these are done by customer or by specialist managed service providers because it gets to be very like commodity kind of play. Lots of like Indian companies play in this space. There are specialist companies that do this for SAP, for example. So this is the run space, and it becomes expensive for consultants to operate in this space because consultants charge a lot by nature of consulting. So what we do as consultants in this space is we don't run it. We advise on how to continuously improve, how to optimize, how to evolve the architectures of things that are in the space, processes and tools in the space. Sometimes we can help on things like supplier relationship management, again, by doing strategic analysis and helping to find the right suppliers. And then often we have specialized roles that are in helping to create business customer relationship management, business alignment, that kind of stuff. Work with end users to understand demand to solutions. So we can get involved in pretty much every process in IT, but it's more on the advice on how to do things better in the run space, but a lot in the architecture, IT roadmap, actual build, actual get projects into production from idea. Okay. Now, in terms of different types of consultancies, we see specialist consultants. So I mentioned my history with Accenture, BSG. We have specialist consultancies where the people who are consultants, they're going out to customers of their business and they're doing a specific project like we did for APSA for a fee, and we expect it to be the best because we've got experience coming in from doing this for a broad range of customers across the industry. That's one type of consulting. If you're in a corporate, so if you decided not to go into specialist consultancy, you could still be a consultant in a corporate. Lots of consultants build specialized teams. You hear the term center of excellence, etc., where you're in a team inside a corporate, but that team consults to different business divisions or different areas of business. And it's the same kind of thing. You build up a specific skill, and because of your skill set, you're more valuable to the company by moving around and consulting, strategizing, helping other teams to implement things. If we look at the third kind of way to be a consultant is a service provider, and this we have lots of teams at AWS that do this. So we have software vendors, hyperscalers like AWS, Microsoft do the same thing. You could be part of a team that is advisory to customers by virtue of being aligned to a set of technologies or a platform. Salesforce do this quite well. They are Salesforce consultancies that specifically just do Salesforce, and because they're part of Salesforce as a service provider, their job is to make sure customers adopt the technology in the best way. This is really what my team and I do more of. We do some of this, but we do a lot of the service provider stuff. So make it easy for customers to understand what the technology does, make it easy for them to implement those technologies so they can be successful in their business. And the first model, consultants charge a fee. The second one, they're paid for by the company, so that is salary based. And then this one, the cost, for us comes as AWS comes into how the customer's using the platform. We don't really charge for any of our services, our consulting services to customers. Okay. I'll go quickly because we're running out of time a bit, but just in terms of industry focus, this changes a lot, but I just want to share where you would be focusing, whether you went into any of those types of consultancies. You would primarily in South Africa be focusing on financial services, so banking, insurance, trade, retail customers, Woolies, ShopRite, Pick n Pay, manufacturing, transport. These are the big industries. Government is still a strong spender, but a little bit more difficult to do businesses with. If you're a consultant in South Africa in the next few years, financial services is still the biggest spender by far. In fact, it's a fair chunk of my focus at the moment because they have the budgets. Their business is largely technology based, and in order to compete with each other, they have to spend money on technology for things like customer centricity, digitization. We saw a lot of this happen during COVID. Investment into modernization, unlocking the power of data, doing things like machine learning, AI, and then cloud services like data analytics, IoT, driving demand for all of these consulting services. I'm going to skip this just in terms of time, but if we look at like some of the factors affecting consulting is actually getting harder and harder, and this is a bit of a known phenomenon within the business. Like when I started working in consulting, we would do massive SAP projects, big ERP projects like for Oracle based solutions and that kind of stuff. The 5-year implementation projects on-prem, they're dead. No one's doing them. Projects are shorter and shorter. Clients are more discerning. There's more governance. They know more what they want. Customers want more transparency into what they're getting. So you can't just go and sell like a 2-page contract to sell, 100 million rand SAP implementation. There's a lot more governance and control. And of course, you're not just competing in a local marketplace because we're all connected. Everything's on cloud. We're in a global marketplace, and your competition is global. But at the same time, it gives people in South Africa the ability to be global consultants working for companies across the world. Now, some things that are important when we look at consulting skills, we have the technical skills and to understand the latest technology trends, but we also need to have industry knowledge and understand industry trends. To be a consultant, you need to be able to do things like lead and decide. You need to be able to, do things like interact and present to clients. You need to be able to analyze and interpret results and data. There's a lot of skills that you need outside of technology. And one of the most important is being able to adapt and cope with change. As a consultant, there's new challenges, circumstances change, the solutions need to change, the results you're presenting to a customer may need to change. So looking at these competencies and building them up as you go, whether it's through informal projects, a little side business, startup that you're running, these are all really good skills to practice. And then if we're looking at skills that help you differentiate against your peer group, okay, you're all here, so if you all do this, you can't differentiate from each other. But anything data analytics, data science related is going to be good. Being self-sufficient, using your own skills to analyze data, whether that's SQL, Python, whatever, super important at the moment. Being able to do techniques like issue-based problem solving, financial acumen, how well can you understand business models, customer financials, design thinking, skills to work in an agile environment, following Scrum or SAFe, and then sometimes UI, UX kind of skills if you're more in the dev space especially. So these are quite important. And if you want to get more information on some of the stuff I mentioned, there are some industry frameworks that are quite commonly used. So on the agile side, there's Scrum, there's like Lean Six Sigma, but Scrum and SAFe are the good ones on the agile side. If you're looking at IT frameworks, TOGAF is a general architecture development framework. ITIL is about how IT is structured, and COBIT is more on the management of IT. For architecture, most of the cloud providers have free training. There's a lot of paid for training as well, but looking at the AWS certs and the skills that you could be needing, there's a lot of free training around this, and I'll give you a bit more info in a second. Security is always a good one as well. Things like certified ethical hacker, some of the CompTIA stuff, certified information security manager. I'd recommend looking at these, but not doing them just yet, because if you join the workforce, chances are your employer will pay for this. Even some of these, getting good foundation, good intermediate level cert will differentiate you. Professional level you can do while you're working. And then anything data related, there are lots of free resources. YouTube is a good one. Coursera, Udemy is a fantastic place to learn. But like I said, on AWS as well as other cloud providers, there are many free resources. So we have things like Skills Builder, we have Cloud Quest, Industry Quest, lots of free knowledge that you can sort of build. There are certs, you have to pay for the certs, but we do often give discount vouchers. There's a lot of free training to help you prep for that. And there's something we specifically launched called Skills Builders that has 600 plus courses that you can go and do for free. There are other courses that are paid for, and if you want, for example, live digital learning, then you typically have to pay for that kind of stuff. But yeah, you could. There's a lot of free. If you just go search for AWS Skills Builder, you'll find a lot of things that you can do for free. In fact, I just want to. I can just share
There's a
this.
question. I don't know if maybe you can
Yeah, we
answer
can take.
whilst you are. Okay.
Yeah, we can take the question. I just want to show like, so this is Skills Builder. There are lots of free courses. You can do some subscriptions and get access to more stuff. But if I wanted to do data engineering on the cloud, I'm sure I'll find it. Maybe this was the one I was looking at earlier. You can find, data engineering foundations on AWS. There are lots of free courses. You can enroll in this. You can understand a whole lot of things about data engineering on the cloud. So there's lots of free training that you could use to get started. Even some of the exam preparation training is completely free. Yeah, let's go with the question.
Okay. Thanks. I see. Okay. The first one, I'll start to the last one. Julie asked what certifications are most valued at Amazon for someone in my field of interest, e.g., cloud computing and software development? That's a great question. I don't know, Terence, do you have context or you want me to explain on this one?
Yeah, I'll give you my view. So I think it depends on what is required for the role. So hands-on experience is very good. I think a cert helps people understand that you know AWS specifically and you know some of this. I would recommend that everyone at least has a foundational knowledge of cloud doing the cloud practitioner. If you then want to go the dev route, it's then things like I'd say like the developer associate may be a good one to get into if you're going the dev route. If you're going more an architect route or a data engineer associate is really good for anyone wanting to show that they have data engineering skills. Once you build up a little bit more, then any of the specialty skills or the professional level ones become very valuable. But these are not really to get you into the workforce. These are maybe further along the line. I'd say if you want to show that you've got a good foundational understanding, it's these ones in blue that you should get to, and this one is just like a stepping stone to get there. So if you want to be a solution architect, this associate level is pretty good. It covers quite a lot of different tech, so it's a fairly broad set of understanding of tech you need to do this. This one's more for somebody who's looking to be a cloud administrator, but the developer associate or the solutions architect associate are really good certs to show that you know what you're doing. If you're going more the data engineering route, then data engineer associate. Bruce, anything you want to add there?
Sure. I think that's precisely the same thing I wanted to mention. What I found out within the industry is like people, they have interest like specialty areas. So perhaps you want to look at being an AI engineer or being a security engineer or a specialist in that field. So depending on where you want your career trajectory to go, then you can choose one of those. I think it's more borders on your personal decision and your interest. And one of the key things we always say at AWS or at Amazon, learn and be curious. So for someone like me, I like to learn different aspects and I don't want to be left behind. So it's also another key driver to me, learning from different skills.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
quick
think
one.
let's go with more questions.
Okay. We've got another question. Are they okay? It's the same questions. Um, okay. Possibly it might be related, but from Kwazi as well, saying, are there any specific certifications that Amazon recommends for students and recent graduates to improve their chances of being hired?
Sure. I would say like not necessarily improve your chances of being hired. That said, if you're applying to any tech job, if you do have an AWS cert, it's better than somebody who does not have an AWS cert. So any of those certs will be good. In fact, even if you have like you've studied like data science on Coursera and you have that, it's better than not having anything. So if you're talking about differentiation, I'd say any of the stuff that we showed up, and I think Darian, if we can share the presentation, you can share it with the team as well, so they can have all of the details. But yeah, any of those certs is good. I think what you don't want to do is jeopardize like your finishing your well at university because you've gone and studied too many difficult things and it's splitting your focus. But where you can fit in something that may be aligned to what you're doing, it's really good. So if your project this year is very heavy on data engineering, maybe look at the data engineering cert. It will no doubt prove that you have the ability to do like technical deep dives. What I can tell you is that anyone joining my team will have to have by the end of their first year, even at like graduate level coming in, they would need to finish the solution architect associate by the end of that first year. In fact, normally they would finish it by the end of the 6 months to hit. It's like one of the requirements in their career growth plan to do that. So within 6 months they'll write that cert. If we move up to like somebody who's been working here for like 3 years and wants a promotion, they need the solution architect professional because my team is solution architects, so they would need that. So I think it does depend on what stage you are at in your career. Definitely the professional level stuff combined with work experience. Otherwise, you're going to find it very difficult to do if you just have an academic understanding of the tech. You want to prove that you've got hands-on experience plus you've got the cert, not just one of them.
Yeah, I second as well. So there's always that question that comes to say, about the skills. So in many spaces where people look at certificates generally helps on your validation that, oh, you're good at it. But in many spaces you find out that what's actually is more important is getting those skills. So learn as much as possible. So a certification will just validate me that, oh, I've learned this and yeah, I can be
Yeah.
able to answer questions around that. Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point because
Yeah.
when I'm interviewing somebody, regardless of what level it is, I see the cert makes sense. I'm going to ask you, related to the cert or not, what have you been building in your personal capacity? What have you been playing around with? Not just what did you have to do for your project or what did you have to do for your boss for your internship? Like, what are you passionate about? What did you go and build? And if somebody hasn't built anything on their own, for me, that's a bit of a red flag around them not having enough passion or interest in technology. The cost of getting into cloud is super low. You don't have to go buy your own hardware to run anything. You just need an internet connection. You can often get some credits from somewhere attending a meetup event or something like that. We often hand out credits. There's a free tier, so if you're using the free tier services, you don't even pay anything. So there's really no excuse for you to not go and even build a little solution, a website, home automation, a little IoT solution, that you can go, I've built something, I've gone, dive deep into the tech, I've learned it, I've built something useful because I wanted to, not because anyone was asking me for it.
Yeah,
That
true.
that's going to differentiate a lot.
Yeah, as well, like what Terence mentioned, my personal experience was when uh, I was still at UKZN, I built my own portfolio. So I bought a domain. Um, I think it was less than 50 Rand at the time also. Then I did build my portfolio. Then I deployed my first small application in cloud. So those things that you do in your ISTN project or your second year, I think PHP, um, uh, projects that you do, you can actually deploy that in cloud, maybe use FileZilla and just have something on your small portfolio and learn from. Uh, there's also like Coursera edX. So those are the things that I didn't have money to write the sets. So I think those can build your competency. Like there's so much that you can play around with. And yeah, when you have your means to do the certifications, yeah, it's just a validation on those skills to say, yeah. But like Terence mentioned, we look at those key things that if you've done something hands-on and playing around with things. Okay. Then the next question is hands-on means projects or just pure certificate or certifications. Maybe
Always
that's
projects, always projects. Build something, try it out. Much more meaningful than just the cert. The cert shows you've got breadth of understanding around a wide range of things, and not just built something the wrong way. So the cert shows you have the thinking, and the hands-on stuff shows that you got into the details. You actually understand how to use it. So you need both. But if I had to choose one or the other, I'd say if somebody came to me and said, I built this really awesome thing, and they can explain to me the tech they used and why they used this building block versus that one. So why I used, function like a Lambda function instead of a container, or I used this type of database as a key value pair instead of a different type of database, like a relational database. I'll say this person knows what they're talking about. I'll also ask questions, right? But if you've built stuff, chances are you know what you're talking about. So
Yeah, true. So another hands-on thing, I've seen there are questions that comes on Stack Overflow. So if you can help answer those questions, you're also building your skills. And if people say, "Oh, thanks for the answer" and stuff, so those little things they help you grow as like in your tech. So is there any other question I came across? It's from Nathan. Hi, thanks for the informative session. I have a question. Could you please provide more details about the kind of roles available for recent graduates at Amazon, especially in the areas related to technology and innovation? Additionally, what kinds of mentorship and development programs does Amazon offer to help new graduates integrate into their professional roles? So the
sorry.
first thing, Terence, is how do we get to enter? What are the roles that are there? And once we enter, are there kind of support mechanisms and mentorship, if I understand correctly
Yeah,
the question?
so there are a few different ones. I think, Ruth, you started talking about your experience joining the support program. So maybe you want to just elaborate on what PS does, and then I'll talk about what some of the other areas do.
Okay. Great. So I joined as a cloud support engineer, like cloud support associate graduate. So basically, I know in your second years or final years, you start to look for the job and stuff like that. So that's what I did. I applied through that. In my final year. So I got that opportunity to engage in terms of going through the interview process as a grad. And when I passed my interviews, so there was the telephonic screen, then I did that, and then I did the on-site. So I had to fly down to Cape Town from Durban, Then after that, when I started here, I had a great. I joined. So the foundations that we were looking for and that we looked for in the cloud support associate space was I need to have strong foundations in networking and Linux. So those are the core of cloud computing skills that you need to be able to work in that role. So I got the support in terms of my development. There were senior engineers, professionals that are already there that helped me. So I got a mentor. So if I had questions, that mentor was able to assist me get to that. So I grew for the first 6 months. I was able to learn different skills in different portfolios. So I also played around different cloud services that were available. Yeah, so there were also many trainings that are there. So Amazon, there's so much that you can learn, and I was so curious as well to learn. So I can assure you there's so much that in terms of support, but the roles, usually if you check on our Amazon jobs, they are advertised. I'm not sure of the timelines that they post, but usually you can filter on our Amazon.jobs, then you select South Africa as a region. So you might see globally there are roles that are available. So depending on the times that they take the graduates, they post from time to time. Maybe Terence can expand on the hiring process as well. He's more familiar on that.
Yeah. So in terms of the I'll get to overall hiring process in a second. I just want to also say that in the last year or so, we've transitioned our internship programs. We used to have 6 months internships. We now do across our commercial business, which is the entity that sells AWS services to companies. We've switched to year-long internships. So our last group of interns started, I think, in January or Feb, and they will run for 12 months. When what we do is, especially for the technology-based interns, they go through something called our internal Tech U, our technical university, and that helps teach them architecture skills, other tech skills that they need for the job. That takes about 6 months to get through. And then the rest of the time they will spend working with our team of solution architects, going to see customers, working on customer-based solutions, working on some internal projects. So those, I think next year's intake will probably start in a few months' time. I'm happy to share those details. And we have roles in things in different teams. So we have professional services, which does actual like projects and execution and development. We've got partner teams that work with AWS partners. We've got my team, solution architects. So my team doesn't do development. We do advisory. We do architecture definition, that kind of stuff. We also have people in the sales side who run internships. So there's a few areas to get involved in, and each one is a different path, but the process is kind of same to very similar to get in. If you Google Amazon leadership principles, where you will see our 14 leadership principles. Those leadership principles are what we hire for, so that's kind of our culture fit. But we apply those leadership principles in pretty much everything we do. So we're looking to see how you behave in those specific situations. We'll ask you situational questions, but they're all tied back to those leadership principles. And then there is a bit of a functional fit, which is, for example, if we're looking for a developer, what's your expertise as a developer? Do you have enough to build on for future? So at that kind of level, so you don't need to worry too much about anything else, just that functional fit, and are you a good fit for the company? The functional fit, the leadership principle fit is really how we determine if somebody is a good fit. It doesn't mean that if you don't fit that you're a bad person. It's just that you may not be able to work very well in how we work. Very startup, very self-sufficient, very strong focus on learning on your own. The resources are there, but you've got to go forge your own path and learn the things that you want and need. So it's a very different type of company culture versus, joining a bank where your curriculum's laid out for you, your KPIs are very clear, your performance goals are very clear for the year. Amazon is fast paced and can be a bit blurry. Sometimes I'll only get my goals defined in like April, and I'm already halfway through the year by the time I can do anything about it. And that's just because we move very quickly and we decide where to invest our time and effort, with a lot of autonomy.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
There was a question around from the
They say
submitted.
they saw a network community group where they
Yeah,
provide or do projects. Um, so they asking if it's something that they should follow, or perhaps maybe look at other options they can
yeah. I always think you should do both because if you look at like these community groups, and there are lots of different ones, some are more active than others. If you're following a community like a user group, you're meeting people, you're expanding your network. It's also super important for anyone entering the workforce, any job. Like you at university, you don't really understand the importance of it, but when you hit the working world, your network helps you get opportunities. If you're uh, on like the consultant side, will help you get access to customers. Like, I talk about after Standard Bank. I know a lot of people who work there. They will call me when they have a problem. That's part of the network that I've expanded. Those people could be the people who you meet in the user group tomorrow when you do the meetup. But at the same time, you've still got to do things on your own and build on your own and get your hands dirty. So it's a good mix of the two.
yeah. Then I think maybe that's one I can just expand on the last question, which says if you are able, if you can join a team, build projects within a team, does it still count, or would it be better to do the project on your own?
Yeah, I think I'll answer that one in the chat. Like,
Oh,
do both. Do both.
oh
Like,
yeah,
you can absolutely do both. If you can't do both, either of them will do. Being able to work in a team is super valuable to do these things. But every time I interview somebody and they give me, my team did this awesome project, I stop and go, okay, your team did this. What was your role? What did you specifically do? If you can answer those things quite well and the experience comes off, like absolutely work in your team. But we will drill down into that level of information. It does also help if you build stuff on your own because we know you built it end to end, and like building stuff on your own also shows your own passion for something.
thank you. So I think what that's exactly what I needed to mention, what Terence mentioned, be able to explain, perhaps look at and usually if you've done something, you never forget it and you'll be able to explain it. But if you haven't done, if your team has done, then it can be very challenging for you in the interview. So be able to participate, whatever role. Some people they maybe thinking, oh, maybe I just need to look at the technical aspect. But there are also project management skills because you have to deliver in time. You've got need to have that bias for action and stuff in doing. So if you are able to organize teams and be able, so those are quality skills. Perhaps they might be of your advantage. Even
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Riz, I just want to share quickly um, as kind of a closing thought here. Uh, Now, if you're looking to use AWS, if you just go onto our site, you'll see AWS free tier. There are lots of services that you can go in. You still need a credit card, I think, to sign up for a general AWS account. I think for something like SageMaker Canvas for machine learning, you don't need anything. But there are different types of free tier stuff. The stuff that's always free, stuff free for 12 months and trials. And you can go like, yes, you may not be able to use the biggest compute instance, but you can go and get 750 hours of run per month running a T2 Micro, which is a fairly small server, but you can run that for free for for a 12-month period. You can run some basic compute for free. With cloud, because it is pay as you use, when you're not using it, you turn it off and you don't pay for anything. So you can manage this quite well. You could use 25 gigs of DynamoDB, which is very fast online key value pair store. So you can literally create applications, you can play around, you can use things without paying a lot. And even when you do pay, as long as you have the alerts and the budgets and alarms in place, you can keep the cost fairly low to be manageable. AWS has so many different products and services. If you just look at like database, we've got so many different types of database. They're very purpose built. As you build out your knowledge, you'll understand what's better for you. And that's where like the architecture knowledge comes in. But once you decide to use something, like we spoke about DynamoDB, everything you need to know on how DynamoDB works is actually available online. You can do a little course, you can come to the public documentation, you can understand all the features, all of the resources, everything that we would tell you. If you come to help for us to help you with something and you have a question, we will answer your question. We'll point you to the blog or the document that has all of the details, the APIs, everything we have in terms of our knowledge is available online. You just need to know what to look for. And there are lots of people. If you go to Reddit or something like that, there are subreddits that are just AWS, and you can ask questions and people will help you.
Sure, thanks, Terence. Sorry, I wanted to share the link for budgets. I think I shared the one for CloudWatch. But yeah, like Terence mentioned, you can just set up that small budget alarms, maybe $5 or $2 to notify you. You spend less. You find out there are services like Amazon T2 Micro, like that come on that free tier. So you can play around with and perhaps use FileZilla to upload your code or write a basic HTML page and host your first cloud application.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So we're out of time, but yeah, it's been a good session for us. I hope you enjoyed. You're welcome to reach out to Ruz or myself on LinkedIn as well if you use LinkedIn. If you don't use LinkedIn, go today, create a LinkedIn page. It's super valuable for business. So make sure that you do have that at least to start off your profile, and then you can reach out to us and you can ask us any question. We'll point you to the right place. Okay. Darian, I'll hand over to you to close us off.
Okay. Thank you, Terence and Raz, for that informative session. We really enjoyed it. Quite knowledgeable. I've learned so much about consulting. We have a very closed mindset when it comes to IT. The first thing you think about is programming. But yeah, we learned a lot today, and I hope that the students take this with them and actually try to diversify themselves. The portfolio is very important. We've seen it a lot when we speak to other business executives and they say that your CV portrays who you are, and that's very important. So again, thank you so much for your time, your effort on this Friday. I'm gonna leave it now to Nathan, who's gonna do the conclusion. Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Hello, everyone. Thank you once again to Terence and Raz. I'm just doing the vote of thanks. And thank you for coming out and availing yourselves for doing this whole thing, as well as our marketing team, our executive committee, and with regards to all the lecturers and advisory members who spread the word of mouth for this event. We picked over 90 people, so thank you everyone for also joining as well. So thank you guys for joining in as well. We'll be posting this recording on YouTube for your guys' convenience, and connect with us on LinkedIn, as well as Terence and Raz. And thank you guys so much for joining today. Um, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Have a great one,
Thank
yeah,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
it'd be great. Anytime you want us back, we're happy to be back. Just let us know what topic, and we'll
Yeah,
come back and
sure.
present.
UKZN, it's our school, so we're
Absolutely.
passionate about it. And I can tell you there's a good alumni that we work with and we talk the stories back from school. So it would be good to see you today. You are there at UKZN and join us. So I think there's something that we are doing right at UKZN because of the number of people that are working. So we want to continue that good work, show our good name.
Definitely. We're definitely coming for
Yeah.
the on-campus event.
Yeah, sure. Definitely reach out. Feel free. We're there to help out the community. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks.
Cheers, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.
You too.